Welcome to Ghosted, Gagged, and Gay, the podcast where we unpack queer love stories with honesty, humor, and heart. I'm your host, Lone, queer relationship coach and rapid transformational therapy practitioner. Before we dive in, I just want to say if you have ever felt like you're repeating the same relationship or dating patterns over and over again, you're not broken. You're just running a subconscious story that can be rewritten. I work with people one on one to help them uncover that story and change it from the root through a 10-week program called Radiant Hearts Transformation. If that name makes your heart skip a beat, maybe it's meant for you. And now let's get into today's story. Today's guest is Wes Ferguson, a queer actor, writer, and director based in LA. He was starred in the Holy King, a gay supernatural thriller. Wes is the creator of the vertical series Ghosted. You can find it on his Instagram, and which is basically an LGBTQ plus horror series that blends satires, scares, and seduction. And the host of a pop culture podcast, Richy and Wes. Welcome, Wes.
Thank you so much for having you. What a great introduction.
Thank you. So Wes, before we go into today's topic, can you just tell us briefly about your series, Ghosted?
Oh, absolutely. So, ghosted is what happens when someone matches with a ghost on a dating app. It is meant to be, there's a word called spoopy. I don't know if that's, yeah, I'm chronically online, so I don't know if everyone's like, but so it's spoopy, but it's funny, but it's sexy, but it's silly. Someone likened it to an Adult Swim program, which is all these just wild shows that are subversive and low budget. And the idea basically just came from my own dating experiences and just my personal interest in the horror genre. I wanted to be able to actually create something versus writing something and then waiting to try to pitch it to a production company and see if anyone will pick it up. Acting in something and then waiting months and months to see when it might actually come out. So to fill that space, I wanted to create a show that I could take from concept through production and actually have something to show for it. And for a while, I was like, that's what I want to do. What's it going to be? And it took me a hot minute to come up with the concept for it because I also had no location, no crew, nothing.
That must
And
have been very difficult.
you know what though? There's a saying, I believe it says like, uh, necessity breeds creativity. So when you
True.
have, right, when you don't have all the options available to you, that's when you have to get creative. And sometimes the most simple concept just works the best. And when it kind of popped into my head, like, oh, well, I have a nice place, like I can film in my home. Oh, well, what if it's a haunted house? So that's what inspired the idea. Basically, out of necessity, was well, I've got to film it in my own home. I have to feel it, on an iPhone with CapCut. So it's basically just going to be me getting spooked and then turned on by a ghost. So in a way, I think it helped because usually my ideas and my concepts are very big. I
Yeah.
want to have musical numbers and car chases, thing, right? But that's just not always a possibility. And what I also recognized was I have a number of friends who are musicians,
hmm
and as a musician as well, you can't wait until you're picked up buy a label and you can't wait until X, Y, and Z. You have to
You
create for
have to, yeah, you have to do something on your own, right? Like to really like keep the gears rolling, basically.
you have to create for yourself. You have to
Yeah.
create for yourself because also that's what the fulfillment is. As an artist, your audience is you. And that's who your audience is.
Yeah.
And you have to play up to your proclivities, like what it is that you're obsessed with, the things that mean something to you. And then when you go through that process and create something and you're able to put it online,
Hmm.
then you have a resume.
That's true. Yeah.
Don't
No,
have a
that
company anymore. You have something you can be like, oh, well, it's right here. I'll send you the link.
no, that makes sense. That makes total sense. And I actually saw like some episodes on your Instagram and it looks amazing. Like it looks like you put a lot of thought behind it, a lot of effort, even if it's low budget, but I think you really like you used all of your resources very efficiently. It doesn't look as low budget as you're saying, because yeah, I think the quality is really great, and I would really, yeah, and it's fun. Like it's fun, but it has like a message behind it. It's spooky, fun, and has a like a deep message behind it as well. And that actually takes me to like the question that I want to like. It's a burning question I'm waiting to ask. It's like, so you as a storyteller who blends horror, humor, and queerness, especially in your like the series Ghosted, what do you think makes a queer love story truly unforgettable, whether it ends in romance or ruins?
That's a great question because we're all looking to connect with other people, whether it's, through our relationships with our friends and family or through people who we have a romantic interest in. And I think it can be challenging to figure out, especially as for myself, a gay man, where that fits in. Because when you meet someone as a friend, also they're probably another gay man, and you can often confuse feelings of friendship for romanticizing them. And or the same thing, a reverse of that is you meet someone, maybe there's a romantic attraction at first, but then you're more suited as friends. So I think a good romantic story, and maybe this goes for straight people too. I don't know. I don't really care about straight people. Um, but I think you always have to identify with the characters. A character has to be someone that you see in yourself or you see yourself wanting to be. So that's a very important aspect of
Like
any.
to make it very effective and that like relatable, right, to the audience.
Yeah, and so what I hate about a lot of romantic comedies is it's like always someone who's okay, let's use Sex in the City as an example because I think everyone knows that show. And don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, I have absolutely loved Sex in the City and it's guilty pleasure and all that stuff. But I mean, come on, let's talk for incredibly privileged, rich. I mean, you couldn't find a friend group like that, where they all live in like high-rise apartments or brownstone or, oh, now I have a place in the country. Like that's so absurd. Like there's not just the money aspect of it, but that all four of them would be so successful or have all these things going. And there's always sort of this, but that's the fantasy element, right? So that works because
Yeah,
that's what people envision themselves to be.
exactly. Yeah. And I
But
think,
also so
sorry.
in for the top.
Yeah, I think it could happen, but yeah, it's not very realistic and not very like relatable. But yeah, as you mentioned, like I think they're they're playing on the like fantasy side of things to like entice the interest. Which
Yes.
is, yeah, which is like, I think for many people, they wish to have this kind of like community and like, living with their like closest people. And I think it's like a nice idea to have. And I think like the world is just moving towards like in a direction that is completely like individualistic, or like focusing on individualism than like a community lifestyle.
Well, and what
But
makes it work too is that regardless of the fact that these characters have everything, is there are still elements that make them relatable. So that goes
true.
back to what I was saying, at the top is that even if you have everything, there's still the desire to connect. And
Yeah.
you have your closest group of friends, and sometimes that is all you need. But there's still a longing, I think, for most of us to have a deeper connection than that, one that is not just a best friend, but someone that you're sharing intimate moments of your life with as well. And then a good story has to have conflict. It can't just be they're getting along and everything is great. That is a boring story.
That's true.
So there has to be some element of conflict, whether they're in different areas of their life, whether one has different goals than the other, or whatever the circumstances or obstacles might be. You have to create something where the audience questions,
Yeah.
are they going to get together in the end?
Yeah, that's true. No,
And
you're right.
that's always your basic plot for it. Even even a disaster movie. Like there's always one question, like, will they be together in the end? Will they live through this? Will right? There's always that basic thread. And I think for a romantic story, that's it. Will they end up together in the end?
Yeah, no, you're right. Um, so, talking about stories and storytelling. So, how has, I mean, you mentioned earlier that your own like experiences in dating and so on kind of inspired your series Ghosted. So, how would you say, like, how has your own journey with love shaped the stories you're telling today? And if you can give us an example of a story of like a dating or relationship experience that you had, that like kind of goes hand in hand with the series you're creating at the moment, that would be great.
Yeah, the elements that of my own life that I've tried to incorporate into Ghosted are the one, a little bit of spookiness, just in terms of fear, because any relationship, when you're putting yourself out there, there's the possibility of rejection or all these different things. And so there's always sort of the aspect in a relationship of it can be scary. It can be
True.
scary, vulnerable to open yourself up to someone. And I'm obviously representing that in a very like late 80s, early 90s, horror movie kind of way, like what that
Yeah.
fear is. But um, that's one layer that I really wanted in there because I think that any relationship can be terrifying, right? Um,
Yeah.
but another layer that I really try to work into probably anything that I do is humor,
Yeah.
because that's a catch all for me. I always feel like if you can relate to someone and laugh with someone, then you're sharing a deep element of yourself, because not everyone has the same sense of humor.
No.
So you can be around someone who's very funny, but if you don't share the same sense of humor, it doesn't always really click. So the humor element is definitely something I wanted to lay in there. And as far as the overall reaching theme, um, I think that even when we're in a relationship or even when we have friendships and family relationships that are satisfying, we can still find ourselves being alone. And loneliness is something that, whether we want to admit it or not, is part of our life experience. Loneliness, insecurity, those are elements that we all feel on some level or another. So that was kind of a overlaying theme that I wanted to thread in there, is the idea of being alone, because I don't think being alone is necessarily bad.
No. I think I think like the way you're feeling alone, it can tell like about like it can tell you a lot of things about who you are. And also like the cause, right? So there is some kind of loneliness that it's okay to feel, because I mean loneliness at the end is a human feeling and it's totally fine to feel it. But there are also like layers or levels of this feeling that can be underlying like an insecurity or like a deep-seated root cause that needs like addressing and needs to be worked on. Um, yeah, so like actually from my experience, like a lot of my clients, they come to me and that's a very common fear for them, like fear they're scared of being alone. And like the first step for me is to really find out whether it has like an underlying issue or like underlying cause, or is it just like, you know, realistic to feel alone in their particular situation. I mean, of course, it's always justifiable if you don't have somebody to share your life with, but sometimes, like, also the relationship with ourselves can um, like if it's not really well established, then it can cause us to always depend on others to not feel lonely. And then that's kind of loneliness that needs to be addressed. And I think you like the way you're projecting this or incorporating this message in your series is also like it has like would you say it has um like a perspective that highlights that loneliness can be fine or like can be good or not good, but like can be okay, but depends on what kind of loneliness. That's the feeling I got watching your episodes, but I don't know if that's something you were trying to also incorporate in your series.
Absolutely. And you make a really good point. We do have or should have a relationship with ourselves.
Yeah.
So if we're not exploring that relationship with ourselves, whether it's being able to go see a movie by yourself or go and have a dinner by yourself or a hike by yourself, that loneliness can drive you to do some weird stuff.
Yeah.
But I think once you become more solid in who you are and more confident in who you are, and you are um, one, less inclined to do weird stuff, but two, you recognize that loneliness or being alone can actually be very beneficial, because you could put yourself in a situation due to loneliness that isn't actually healthy for you. And um, I have a friend who, what does he say? Well, if you're bored by yourself, imagine how other people feel around you.
Wow, that's actually quite powerful. It's funny, but powerful too.
No, but I love that, because I don't think that any relationship can complete you. You have to be a complete person.
Yeah, like a relationship should be just like the cherry on top, not like a huge part of you.
No one's, I think a lot of people are looking for Captain Save-A-Ho. They're going to save you emotionally and financially and this, that, or the other. They're going to complete you. Oh, it's 50-50. No,
Yeah.
you are 100% of a person. if and when you kind of team up with a partner, that's 200%. So
Yeah.
if one falters a little bit, you've still got the other one. Now, I understand what 50-50 means in terms of like shared accountability and responsibility, but I think the term, like it's 50-50 in a relationship, I think that phrase, that idea gets muddled,
Yeah.
where I think it's important to recognize that you're not half of a person. You're a full person committing
Yeah.
yourself and to a relationship as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And just before we, go to the end or reach the end, basically, do you have any like specific story from your past, like that you would like to share that really kind of changed the way you look at love? I mean, like these ideas that you're talking about that you should be whole with yourself, and then if somebody joins, it's great. It's like the cherry on top. If not, then you're still a complete person by yourself. Um, like to reach these conclusions or reach this kind of mindset, do you have, I'm sure like it doesn't happen from just one story. It happens from like the collective of lessons learned over like your dating life. But is there like one specific story that really kind of influenced you in that direction?
Sure, I had a long-term relationship with someone where, um, are they going to watch this? How specific should I get? No, so were in a long-term relationship, several years, but they had the opportunity to move up with their career and needed to move on from Los Angeles. And so for a while, it was kind of like dating a phone because that was the only contact we had, which is kind of like dating a ghost. They're there, but they're not really there. And thankfully, I've already talked to him today. Like, we're still best friends. But I think that definitely worked its way into the concept of ghosted without giving anything away. The idea that it having that connection, just because that's no longer there in the same way, doesn't mean that it didn't have value
Of
because it
course.
and even though you both may have moved on from that, that you can still find comfort in another type of relationship. I also have had numerous people, um, not romantic relationships, but I have had people pass on in my life. They're just no longer here. And so, in keeping that relationship alive, it's keeping the memory alive of who they are, telling stories about things that you did together, just relating what significance they played in my life. So, those are definitely elements that worked into Ghosted as well.
Yeah. When was like the moment that you realized, oh, I'm like this is turning into kind of a situationship, like dating a ghost, basically. Um, so when was your moment of like the wake up moment where I was like, oh, I'm actually dating my phone right now.
I think we're both coming to that realization, and it was just harder and harder to connect. And ultimately, I think kind of forget because there's supposed to be a trip or we're supposed to see each other, but then we didn't. And then it just was like we both sort of came to that recognition that like there's clearly something here. We care about each other. This is an important, relationship for us, but it isn't going to we can't maintain a romantic and physical relationship this way. And
Yeah.
so I feel like there was sort of I'm trying, maybe I blocked this out, but I'm trying to remember. I feel like there was maybe a moment of anger, probably on my part, or hurt
Yeah.
that resulted in anger. And maybe there were 2 or 3 days that we didn't talk. And then we went right back to talking and communicating and just sort of evolved the relationship that way because we didn't want to end our contact with each other. We just needed to end that part of our relationship.
Yeah, and that's a completely like another like challenge basically to shift the dynamics, to keep the connection, but shift the dynamics without any lingering effects that or like lingering limitation for like future partnerships or future relationships basically.
Yeah,
Um
because both people really need to be kind of on the same page with it. Breakups can be really, really heartbreaking because typically one person's out of it and one person is in it. And
yeah,
that's a rip. That's really, really hard. But when both people are recognizing where that rift is occurring, then I think if you're mature enough to just accept that and face that together, then it's still, of course, it's still painful and it is still sad, but you're also able to move on in a healthy way.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
no, that makes
fire
sense.
are on fire or something.
No, that makes sense. Y- So yeah, so before we finish the episode, so if you could go back to the start of your dating life, with everything that you know right now, what would be the one advice that you would give your like past self when it comes to dating, of course.
Oh gosh. I mean, I always feel like all your experiences lead up to where you are now.
Hmm.
So I really don't know that I would change anything. I think advice to myself or to anyone else would be to just continue to love hard and put yourself out there because if someone takes advantage of that, that's on them. It's not on me as someone sharing myself and opening myself up. That's not ever a negative. If someone doesn't reciprocate that, that's on them. Um, which certainly as a younger person, that might have been nice to hear because you tend to internalize everything and think maybe you did something wrong or you're not a good enough person or what have you. So I think that would definitely be something that I would have liked to have heard as a younger gay man is that you just continue to put yourself out there and put yourself into it and recognize that what nothing that you're doing is wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, life is all about trial and error, right? So, it's important to remember that always. So, yeah, thank you very much for joining today's episode, Wes. I really enjoyed the conversation with you, and I hope the whoever is listening will enjoy this too. And I will also like add your Instagram and any links that you would like to share in the description of this episode, so everybody can check out the Ghosted series and any of your future projects, hopefully more to come. And yeah, and thank you everybody for listening to this episode. And remember that if you've got a story of queer love gone wrong or right, I would love to hear it. And I will also share the link to book an interview with me, and we can have a good time and inspire other people as well. So, anything else you would like to add, Wes, before we finish?
Well, just thank you for having me on. And I guess for anyone listening, yeah, just keep in mind that if you're pursuing a relationship to fulfill yourself as well versus just trying to fulfill someone else. And that's a lesson that I've learned as well.
That's amazing. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. All right, then. Have a nice day. Bye bye.